Welcome back to another edition of the Throws Doc podcast. I'm your doc, Dr. Charles Inferna, where we're writing scripts to cure your throwing ailments. The ailments we're going to be talking about today are actually research-based. Imagine that. And it's been quite 2023 so far. Today we are recording on, let's see here, Tuesday, January 17th. And started out as a little bit of a rough day out here in Western New York. Got to school. School's closed for weather. So made for a lot of catching up, which was great because didn't have any other distractions. We did a lot of curriculum work, a lot of mapping, started to develop some outcomes and assessments and things, but that's not what you're here for today. What you're here for is to, if you're an athlete, to help cure whatever might be ailing you in the circle. If you're a coach, how you can better assist your athletes in competition, practice, life, etc. And what I'm really excited about to share briefly with everyone today is finished up another research project, another paper where over the course of goodness, it's amazing how COVID shuts things down and puts life on a hold. I started a research project way back in 2020 when I was still with the University of Rochester. And essentially what the purpose of the project was to better grasp the concept of what athletes perceive their relationships with their coaches to be like, and what their perception of what an ideal coach-athlete relationship should look like, and how those differ from each other. And we asked a whole bunch of other questions as well regarding how much you think your relationship with your coach influenced your athletic performances, strengths and weaknesses of your coach-athlete relationship, etc. So it was a coaching guide, an interview guide. It started out as a coaching guide that developed into an interview guide, adapted from Hodge et al. He's a great researcher out of Australia that has done a ton of work on coaching and philosophy with regard to rugby in Australia. And I spoke to him a couple times when I was at the U of R, and we actually talked a lot about programs and teams and cultures and how they're able to sustain success. And at the time, this would have been 18, 19, I spent a lot of time talking to him about Judd Logan and told him who Judd was and Ashland University and all the great things that Judd was doing there and had done there at the time. And he's like, wow, that's really interesting. What is it about him that's able to continue that that tradition? What is it about the college, or the university rather? So that was really the impetus of the research I conducted, not so much on Judd, but asking high-performing athletes, throwers, college throwers, what it was about their coach-athlete relationship that they thought positively impacted their performance. And it took a long time to get this done. Like I said, IRB application, starting the process. First interviews were conducted late spring, early summer of 20. Wrapped up with the interviews here. Gosh, I think September was the last interview conducted for the project. So over that span, interviewed 11 throwers and asked them about coach-athlete relationships. And it's interesting what came out of the study, because part of the limitations, we had a good collection of D1, D2, D3 throwers from a healthy sample of both private and public schools. And it really wasn't the point of generalizing, but I'm really fascinated with the idea of specific colleges, and I don't know why. I don't know, I'm trying to figure this out. But like, what is it about a college that is able to produce this environment that allows athletes to succeed at a high level, right? And when we're talking about success at a high level, it's been defined in the literature. Folks defined it. I gave it a crack last year. Benny's defined it also, Benny and White. So basically, when we're looking at high-performing athletes, I'm looking at it from the university level. And a college athlete that earns All-American at minimum and or wins the national championship, I think they're considered high-performing, right? Especially the way D3 numbers have exploded in the last couple years. I mean, any D3 national champion, arguably an All-American in a specific event. You could All-American at D2 for sure, and a great chance to at least make the finals, if not All-American at D1, you know, considering the circumstances and what happens, right? So, but what is it about unique situations that allows that to happen? And I'm like still perplexed by that. So if there's anybody who's going to watch this, who's a researcher, who's interested in looking at like a retrospective or some type of, I don't even know what the study, how it would be manifested, but what is it about certain programs across the United States that allows them year after year after year to produce high quality athletes? And I'm talking about track and field, right? So what is it about schools? Like, is it geographic locations? Because you could look at TFRS, and basically TFRS changes all the time, right? You're All-Americans, you're national champions, like, so geographic location, if you would think that, you would think that your SEC, Pac-12 schools, right? Your Arizona's, Arizona State's, USC, UCLA, etc., ACC, like all these schools in these warm climates would produce high quality performances. And that's not necessarily the case all the time, right? Facilities, well, depending on where you go, some have an indoor field house, some don't because you don't need it. Scholarship, well, if you're the top ranked high school thrower in the country, I guess essentially you could go anywhere you want, possibly. But when these specific athletes get there, whether they were high school All-American or not, there's something in the water, if you will, that allows these people, these coaches, these programs, these individuals to achieve success. And I'm not sure what exactly it might be, but I'm going to keep asking the questions because I'm interested, right? Like, I'll give an example. SUNY Fredonia, before I arrived in the fall of 2000, from 1976 to, 1998, 1999, won like basically every outdoor SUNYAC conference championship, right? The double decade of dominance. Shirts were made. Teams were extremely successful over the course of basically 20 years, right? So there were basically All-Americans every year across all event groups, and the All-Americans started happening, or those performances started happening pre-1984. So the field house in Fredonia was built in 84, but before then you had All-American javelin thrower, shot put, discus, no, not discus, hammer, weight, 800, 10,000, pole vault, triple jump, high jump, long jump, like all these great performances, right? Without a field house. And I've argued, and I will continue to argue, that if you build it, they will come. Maybe not. Doesn't hold as much weight as maybe we would like that to. But that's a conversation for another time. So anyway, so Fredonia basically ran wild in the SUNYAC conference here in New York for about 20 years, where there were multiple years when they won indoor SUNYACs, indoor states, outdoor SUNYACs, outdoor states, basically every year for multiple years. And there were some years where indoor track on the men's team, we're just talking about the men's team, sorry. Men's team would score over 300 points at the indoor conference championship. Now, what's interesting about that is way back when, they would score 6 places for indoor track. 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1. And there were 3 years that I can recall off the top of my head. 94 indoor, 95 indoor, where the men's team scored 300 points. 300 points in indoor track where you only score 6 places. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. And up until then, other schools had facilities as well, right? So what was it about Fredonia? I'm not really sure. I went there and I have no idea what caused all that to happen. It was a great coach, Jim Ulrich, Doc Phillips. Like, they basically ran the show for a long time. Of course, there were great athletes that came, but the one thing that does stick out a little bit is that the admission process was a little more, what's the best way of saying this? More athletes could get in 1994 than 2004, right? Let's put it that way. But, I mean, Fredonia has brutal winters. There's nothing really gorgeous about the campus that separates it from any other campus, Geneseo, Brockport, Buff State, right? So that's what we're trying to figure out, but on a larger scale, at the D1 scale, D2 scale, even D3, where there's so much, or so many more better performances or increased performances and things. And, we'll hold that thought. We'll continue on part 2 in just a second here.